video looks at the phases of the Earth's moon, and we're going to review this tonight. We'll do some activities with it in class tomorrow, and then over the weekend you guys will be getting ready for a quiz next week covering the properties of the Earth, gravity and inertia, and the phases of the moon. So let's get started. So we're kind of moving away from the Earth. We're moving to our next closest neighbor in space, our moon. Alright, so a couple notes before we get to that. First off, the moon doesn't make its own light. Alright, the light that comes to Earth from the moon is reflected sunlight. So if the sun is shining, as long as the moon isn't blocked by the Earth, which pretty rarely happens, and we'll show that in class tomorrow, they're pretty far apart. Sunlight will hit the moon and bounce back to the Earth, and that's what we see. So, I've got the moon's light, alright, and you guys can take your own notes. Alright, so the moon does not produce its own light, it comes as reflected sunlight back to the Earth. And what this means is, just like the Earth, half of the moon is lit up by the sun at all times. Alright, we know that on the Earth, half of the Earth is lit up. Alright, sometimes though we're not on the sunlit side, right? And then we call that nighttime. Alright, half of the moon is lit up by the sun at all times, but sometimes we can't see all of the sunlit side, depending on where the moon is in its orbit around us. So sometimes that sunlit side is facing away from us, and this creates what we call the phases of the moon, right? And it's the moon's changing appearance, right? So this is pretty key. So when we see the changing shape of the moon in the sky, it's not that more or less of the moon is being lit by the sun, because it's always half. We just don't see as much of the sunlit side at different times. So, moon phases are defined as the changes in the moon's appearance, right? Changes in appearance of the moon due to how much of the sun's light we can see reflecting off it. So this diagram just kind of shows you what those phases are. We're going to look at another diagram in a second that explains this a little bit more clearly. All right? So again, it's the changes in appearance of the moon from the Earth. All right, so continue, take your own notes for this section. All right. So changes in appearance of the moon due to how much of the sun's light we can see reflecting off of it. And this diagram shows this a little bit more clearly. So here's the sun over here. Obviously this is not to scale. Here's the sun. Here's the Earth in the middle. We can see this is like a top-down view. So we are floating somewhere in outer space looking down at the moon and the Earth. Here's the Earth. We can see half of the Earth lit up by the sun. Right? This is the daytime side. This over here would be the nighttime side. And these circles show the moon at different parts in its orbit. All right? Now obviously the moon can only be in one of those places at once. All right? It takes about 1 month. Oh, what do you know? Month moon. What a coincidence. About 1 month for the moon to go all the way around the Earth. All right? So what this diagram shows is not only where the moon is around the Earth, but how the moon would look from Earth at each position. All right, so if the moon is directly between the Earth and the sun, you can see that if you were on the Earth here looking up at it, so imagine a little person here looking straight at the moon, you can't see any of the sunlit side. It's all gone. All right? Doesn't mean that half of the moon isn't still lit up, because it is. The question is, we just can't see any of that sunlit side. It's all facing away from us. So that is a new moon. All right, the phrase comes from when people used to literally think the moon went away, right? Which was a long time ago. Astronomers figured this out a pretty long time ago, a couple thousand years. As the moon moves through its orbit, remember everything goes counterclockwise in our solar system, some of that lit side starts to become visible. We call that a waxing crescent. And as the moon keeps going, we get first quarter, what we call a waxing gibbous, a full moon, and then a full moon is when we can see all of the lit side. All right, so it looks like we can see the quote whole moon, but we're not seeing the whole thing, right? The backside we still can't see, but it's facing away from us. Waning gibbous, last quarter, waning crescent. Don't worry about getting all the names down right now. If you already did, it's not a big deal. We'll do some activities with them tomorrow in class. But what I do want to make sure we get down is these ideas, is the concepts of waxing and waning. Alright, so we say that the moon is waxing when it becomes more lit, right, going from new to full. So it's becoming more lit. So we're seeing more and more and more of the lit side of the moon, and the right side is lit when viewed from Earth. And then waning means to become smaller. So it's becoming less lit. Right? The moon is going from full to new. And the key is when viewed from Earth, the left side of the moon is lit when viewed from Earth. Alright, so we will talk more about this tomorrow. We'll do some demonstrations with the lamps in the classroom and use some tennis balls. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Make sure you write a summary at the bottom and talk about it all tomorrow.